All right, get ready on that unfollow button because I'm about to tell you how much I love Titanic. I think Titanic is James Cameron's second best film after Terminator 1. I've seen it about 25 times in the theater, and I don't know, 15 times past that. So I kind of suspect that the people that say they don't like this movie are actually self-consciously saying that they don't want to be seen as the kind of people that like this movie. Which is ironic because that's the exact kind of societal restriction on loving something that the movie wants to break you out of. So let me get you to love this movie. The primary tools Cameron employs to make Titanic work so well are melodrama and inevitability. Let's start with the second one. He knows that you know what is going to happen, and that's how he draws you in. First of all, the movie's called Titanic. And if you didn't know what Titanic was, it starts in the modern day and tells you there's this ship that's not called the Titanic. Bill Paxton jumps in and says, oh my God, almost everybody died in that ship when it sank. But let's look at how it sank. They play a video, it starts tipping up into the air, and then the lights go out, and then it breaks in half. You are basically watching a movie trailer at this point. Then Paxton's like, hey, there's this little old woman. She's going to talk to us about love of her life, who she met on the Titanic. You also notice there is no little old man with her. So it's pretty obvious what's going to be happening. Then the movie starts. Actually, no, it doesn't. Then the advertisement for the movie continues. We go back to Titanic, and we meet Jack and Rose. Here is everything we ever learned about these two. Jack is young, charming, poor, and happy. Rose is young, charming, rich, and sad. They have absolutely no detail at all, which sounds like a flaw until you realize that writing simple characters is the fastest way to get the audience to deeply identify with someone. There's an incredible book by Scott McCloud called Understanding Comics that I reference all the time that explains that the simpler the drawing is, the higher the chances are the audience is going to say, oh, that kind of looks like me. So as the movie goes on, we tend to attach ourselves subconsciously more and more to the person we must identify with. And this movie goes on, but it's not wasting its time. It's got plenty of advertising to do. And by advertising, I mean showing you all the stuff that is going to explode. Their journey over the first half not only introduces you to all the characters you're going to hate or love, it also catalogs every aspect of the Titanic and gives you a preview of everything and every one that will be destroyed. In short, the first hour and a half of the movie is an ad for the second hour and a half of the movie. And when the iceberg hits, that's when the movie starts. And what a damn movie! Because unlike other disaster movies, it's not just a big pile of undifferentiated explosions. He has already told you what to expect, in what order to expect it. These inevitabilities are locked into our minds, and it's what gives everything dramatic tension. So even when you're in the middle of something that's going bad, you know it's going to get worse. And even when something goes right, you know it's not going to last. We are invested in Rose and Jack as a relationship, and because of the time we've spent with all these other ancillary characters, we're invested in them too. And this is where I want to bring up one thing. Tropes are good. It's become very internet fashionable to hate on tropes because they're so predictable. But predictability is the point. Tropes are tools. Stock characters are tools. They act as emotional shorthand for things that we actually believe in. Their lack of specific definition means we attach our own personal history to those things. And when you plug in tropes and stock characters correctly into a really well-built structure, you're actually giving the audience permission to invest in the film with the details of their own life. We all know a Billy Zane. This is why generic rom-coms will make you cry, or generic action films will make you feel excited. We fill in the details. And it's through this mechanism that every aspect of Titanic becomes emblematic of our actual emotional lives. Jack and everyone in third class is really living life and embracing it in a sort of fantastical, carefree way that we all wish we could take part in. Rose and the rich crew, however, represent our self-conscious reality. Their existence is rigid, static, uninspired, fearful, inevitable. Unselfconsciously embracing joy versus self-consciously fearing to do so. These are the two halves of our heart, and these are the two halves of the metaphor that is the Titanic itself. And Rose and Jack are, wait for it, the figurehead of that struggle within us. Because while sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, the Titanic is a symbol for our life. And we are, all of us, headed towards inevitable doom. Points to Cameron for not saying that one out loud because intellectualizing it would keep us from feeling it, but we do feel it and everyone cries. And this is where we need to talk about melodrama. Because melodrama gets a bad rap. The entire point of melodrama is not to be corny. It's to represent emotional things on screen as large as they feel in your heart. It makes it okay to feel these feelings and not be embarrassed by them. The gargantuanness of it validates everything that we feel. And for the first 2 hours and 50 minutes, Cameron gives us exactly that. Then he pulls his final best trick. With all that emotion built up inside us, he reframes the movie on a human scale. Instead of a giant boat with thousands of people, rich and poor, sliding into the sea, it's just Jack and Rose floating on an ornate piece of wood in the middle of nowhere. And Rose has to make the choice again. To borrow from another movie, get busy living or get busy dying. And she chooses to embrace her life. And the moment she does so, we are instantly rewarded with seeing how glorious that life was as we inevitably head back to the future, leaving the question with us as we leave the theater. Are you brave enough to fall in love with your life? Titanic.